We're in the home stretch now. It's the third and final episode in the podcast series for Rock Your Mining Industry Job Interview. It may feel like the pressure is off a little bit by now. You've overcome making the first impression with an award-winning answer to the question, "Tell me a little bit about yourself." And you've mastered the difference between the traditional and the behavioural questions and answers in the technical section of the interview. If you haven't done that yet, go back and review part 1 and 2 of this series. But just as you're relaxing and feeling like the hard work is done, you get the most challenging questions in quick succession. What's your biggest strength? What's your biggest weakness? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? What are your salary expectations for this role? Do you have any questions for us? It's enough to make you start to sweat all over again. How do you answer these questions in English and sound confident, but not arrogant? What if the salary range you give is too high? Will they not offer you the job? What if it's too low? Will you get a low salary offer? Maybe you're not sure what salaries are like in this company or country. To be honest, I find this section of the interview to be the most nuanced part of the whole process in terms of cultural communication styles. If you are interviewing in a culture where direct communication is a style, you should match it. Let's take the strengths question. What would you say is your biggest strength? Now, let's say the answer is going to be persistence. You don't give up easily, even during challenging times. You stay focused on the end goal and keep the momentum going even when it's really difficult. It's a great skill to have, right? In a direct communication culture, you may say, "I am resilient." Some might say stubborn. But once I'm committed to the end goal of a project, I am focused on maintaining the momentum, even when things get tough. I am able to put aside how I feel and keep going until the job is completed. But you may want to express it a little bit differently if you're interviewing in an indirect communication culture. What may sound confident in one culture may sound rude and arrogant in another. So how might we say the same thing in a more indirect style? I would say that one of my strengths is being resilient. I have noticed over time that even when projects become very challenging, I am somehow able to keep focused on the end goal, and this helps me to keep the momentum that I need to be able to complete the project successfully. But we could take it even further by saying, people have told me before that they admire my resilience. I never really thought about it, but on reflection, I can see that I've been able to maintain focus on a project goal even under times of stress and difficulty. So maybe resilience is one of my biggest strengths, although I'm the first to admit that there's still some room for improvement here. Can you feel the difference? Now, can you imagine what happens when we get this wrong? If we use an indirect communication style in a direct communication culture, we can end up sounding unconfident at best and dishonest at worst. And if we use too direct a language in an indirect communication culture, we can sound at best rude and a bit arrogant, and at worst patronizing and disrespectful. It's not something to take lightly. Do your research about cultural communication styles. What is your native communication style? And what is the style of the company or the country that you are interviewing for? You'll thank me later for it. Now let's finish this episode off with the question that has probably been on the front of your mind since you heard my opening. How do we handle the salary question? Honestly, there's no right or wrong way to handle it. And it's well known that men seem to handle this question better than women. And this is something that I have struggled with myself. I have used both a direct and an indirect way of answering this question, depending on the circumstance. One time, I was interviewing with a very direct Australian, and I was confident that I knew what the acceptable range was. I just stated, I currently earn X, and I'm not interested in moving for less than Y, which was maybe 5 or 10% more than I was earning. It was accepted on the spot. I did wonder if my salary projection was too low. Aren't we supposed to negotiate? But in time, I realised that it was a fair price based on where it fit in the bigger picture. So it was just that my direct and factual statement was well received, and that's why it was accepted with no negotiation. But this is not my usual style to answer this question. I'm usually pretty indirect. And to be honest, it felt really quite uncomfortable to give that direct a response, but I got through it. I usually end up avoiding giving a number. I tell them that I'm not only interested in a particular salary, but there's much more to it in my opinion. I am interested in the package as a whole, inclusive of training and development opportunities, rosters, additional benefits. And I would add that I'm looking forward to reviewing the package as a whole when they put it together. Not so indirect after all, huh? As an Aussie, I'm naturally a pretty direct communicator. And I don't want to appear as though I'm not assertive in negotiations, because it's a part of my job usually. Every opportunity I get, I am conscious of showing my soft skills ability woven into my answers. And this brings me back to the point I opened this series with. It's not just hard skills that get us the job. It's how we weave the hard and the soft skills through effective communication that makes us stand out and get the job. I will see you inside the speaking program so that you can get some hands-on practice in this section of the interview and find your comfort in communicating across all cultural styles. I look forward to it.